President Wickremesinghe, welcome to Firstpost, sir.
Thank you.
How are you? How have you been?
Well, I must say I have survived.
You have. I met you in June last year, and that's when you'd just taken charge. So, how has the last 1 year been for you?
Challenging, but nevertheless we've got through. I think government has established stability. We are handling the economic crisis. We virtually come to the last lap where all the countries, the creditor nations have to now agree, and we are restructuring the economy. We started it. There's interest in Sri Lanka. Tourism is picking up.
Would you say you have the toughest job in your country?
What?
You have the toughest job in your country?
Well, I think so, but others think they have the toughest job. Maybe my team in the treasury may be having a tougher job than me. They've got to get the figures correct.
Yes.
For me to carry on.
And the figures are challenging. I'll come to that. But what is the most difficult part of your job, sir, as President of Sri Lanka?
No, first was to make the country realize the problems we are facing and say that I had no magic wand and had nothing to give. I could only ask, I had only to request that they may have to bear up this pain for some more time. But I will give whatever relief I can. That I think is the most difficult job I had.
Yes. And most politicians would not say that I have nothing to give and you have to suffer the pain.
Well, I could give them hope and I could give them a better future. But we had to go through a difficult time to get through that.
When you took over, there was complete chaos. There was a sort of, Sri Lanka was bankrupt. There was total collapse. Your own home came under attack. How did you go about restoring it, and are things in order, personally as well as in your...
Firstly was to ask the security forces to establish law and order, not to allow rioting. They took over the Prime Minister's office, from which I was operating, since this building was taken over earlier. Then they attempted to take over the Parliament, at which stage I thought enough is enough, and I ordered the army to take any measure necessary to safeguard Parliament. From that time onwards, we decided that we are going to enforce law and order. There was a big outcry. People said we are violating human rights, but finally we had stability.
Did you ever think that it would come to this, that the presidential office would be run over, that your own home would come under attack?
Well, we never thought this could happen, but in the last month or so, things were sort of, I would say, things were hotting up. Then on May 9th, but the taking of the office was thereafter.
This month, the Sri Lankan Supreme Court held the Rajapakas responsible for the economic crisis, and I'm quoting from what the court said: their actions, omissions and conduct contributed to the crisis. Do you agree with the view?
Well, this is what the court has held.
But do you agree?
The crisis took place during their time.
But the court has not announced any punishment. Do you think they should face the consequences for their actions, or at the very least apologize?
No, the crisis took place during their time. And then when Mahinda Rajapaksa, the Prime Minister, gave up, the President then called on the opposition leader to form a government, which is the normal practice. And in this case, the opposition leader should have taken over because he had the backing of the government. They ducked it. The whole political system collapsed. There was no one willing to take responsibility. So finally, if you take it as a sequence, from the time the crisis took place and the delay in going to the IMF, and then the resignation of Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa, when the opposition failed to take it over, and then there is again the crisis of July, when President Gotabaya Rajapaksa resigned, and again the opposition was not willing to take any responsibility. It meant the whole system has broken down. So the whole politics of this country has been, as I would say, topsy-turvy, which is just been there were a lot of irresponsible actions by everyone.
And yet
So I think you have to look into all that, not merely one part of it. How the system had collapsed.
So you're saying the Rajapaksas alone are not to blame.
Rajapaksas have their share of responsibility.
Should they apologize for that?
I think they have done. Anyway, it's up for them. I think President Gotabaya had said something about this. Anyway, it's up for them. Then when they went off, what would have happened if no one took over the government?
Yeah.
It would have been worse. So it is basically the whole political system broke down because you are used to giving slogans, trying to keep people happy, and no one was prepared to take a hard decision.
Right.
So that's you have to look in that background. I say this whole system collapsed. Not once but twice. So if you look into that,
yeah.
I mean the record is not good for anyone.
Yeah.
As far as President Rajapaksa and the Prime Minister Rajapaksa are concerned, they were there at that time, but it was a process that started. And let's say that they left office. What would have happened if the opposition was not willing to take over and I was not there?
Yes. That sounds like a fair argument to me, but your critics, I'm assuming, would construe it as defense of the Rajapaksas.
I am not defending the Rajapaksas. I am saying Rajapaksas are responsible. But then there no one else to take responsibility thereafter. The critics are the ones who ran away.
You're governing with support from the Rajapaksas party. A few days ago, you also attended the birthday celebrations of Mahinda Rajapaksa. Coming back to the critics, they've called you, and I'm quoting, a surrogate of the Rajapaksas. What do you say to people like these?
I have always wished Mahinda Rajapaksa on his birthday, and he has wished me on my birthday, and I've been there. This time, Mr. Nama Rajapaksa asked whether I could come to his house. He was having a party. Mm-hmm. So I said, yes, I mean, if any member of parliament invites me and I have the time, I go for the birthday party. Otherwise, sometimes we get the cake down and cut it in the parliamentary group meeting or at cabinet. That's the tradition. I mean, it's nothing new. I'm not a surrogate for the Rajapaksas. Their party is split. One half is working with the SJB. Other half is with me. If you ask me, is the whole of Rajapaksa's party supporting me? No. And if you ask me, is the whole of the SJB supporting Sajith Premadasa? No. All parties are split. So it looks as if I just asked people to get together to pull the country out. And I got this majority. If I didn't have the numbers, what would have happened?
This is a unique arrangement. Do you sometimes feel pressure from the party on certain
sometimes
issues?
They have their requirements, they come along. Other times they won't. So it's a sort of not a normal parliament.
Mm-hmm. Let's talk about the economy. How is the Sri Lankan economy doing now? Is it out of the woods yet?
It's not yet out of the woods. It is coming out of the woods. I would say we finished everything. Okay, we are able to meet the benchmarks that the IMF has put, but still two issues are there. One, we still have to balance the budget. Secondly, is a question of the trade balance, which is not in our favor. As far as the domestic budget is concerned, we have to increase our revenues. It's partly affected by the fact that we have our revenue collection machinery is not updated. We've always focused on a few. Secondly, the economy has not picked up. That's also another reason for affecting the revenue. But I think 2024, 25 onwards, it will be better. But we can't go on as this traditional way. We have to have a new economy, and that's what we are planning for and going ahead.
One of your biggest expenses is servicing the debt, but Sri Lanka has not been able to generate the kind of revenue they need to do that. How do you plan to meet your debt obligations then?
No, we have to depend more on our revenue. We have to get the economy grow much faster, which means restructuring the economy, removing away the remaining fetters to growth.
Right. In September, the IMF withheld new funds after a review. How do you plan to unlock the remainder of the bailout?
We've fulfilled what has to be done. So there shouldn't be a problem. We met the IMF targets, benchmarks, to use the word.
President Wickremesinghe, who is Sri Lanka's biggest creditor as of today?
Pardon?
Who is Sri Lanka's biggest creditor as of today?
Who do you think?
You tell me.
Huh?
I think it's China.
It's the international sovereign bonds. That's the biggest.
Bilateral creditor?
No, bilateral is China, but our biggest creditor is the private. The private creditors, they form the largest number.
And China is the biggest bilateral
It's
creditor.
a bilateral, yeah.
And yet China has refused to be included in debt restructuring. Why do you think they want a separate
China
agreement?
has been in it separately. We negotiate with them separately. It has nothing to do with Sri Lanka or any other countries. They are not satisfied with the terms they are getting from the IMF and the World Bank. They feel that they should have a bigger role to play in the IMF. So they've decided to opt out of it, and they are going separately. It's making life more difficult for all of us who are in debt. But this is the reason. It's had nothing to do with that. It's something that has to be sorted out by the big boys.
But China is stalling the IMF relief that Sri Lanka so
No,
desperately needs.
China has now agreed. They sent in their letters of consent, and we have conveyed to the others the content of their letter. The letter was sent in confidence to us. We've requested China also to give copies to the other members.
China is often called a loan shark, and over the past few months they played hardball with Sri Lanka as well. Did you at some point feel that you were dealing with a loan shark?
I won't say it's a loan shark. We knew they were going to play it separately and differently, but I also knew that with the others responding, China was also going to give a similar response. And I agreed to meet, I wanted to meet with President Xi, which they agreed at the Belt and Road. It was not an easy thing to negotiate debt restructuring among international geopolitics, but that's what happened.
You met him in October. What did you tell him?
I discovered, by that time I had spoken to the others. He said, no, we will be sending you our requirement, our consent. So didn't go into details, we had already discussed it. But I must say, first we appreciate India, $3.5 billion that was given. That was useful. Secondly, the other countries helped us and the multilaterals.
I will come to the role of India, but do you believe that Beijing has been an honest broker during Sri Lanka's financial crisis?
We didn't have any difficulty dealing with them.
Do you think India would agree with this assessment? Because India has been trying to bring all the creditors on one platform and China refuses to join it.
Yes, no, we also suggested one platform. China refused to do it, it's our suggestion.
So they did make your life more difficult.
I mean, dealing with two groups was not easy. But then the outcome, I think, again, even in respect to other countries, this will happen. The message is that China is sending a message to the IMF and others. So it's up for them to sort it out.
But what is the message Sri Lanka taking from this episode?
No,
vis-a-vis China?
Pardon? No, we know that China has now cooperated and they've given their positive answer.
Sri Lanka is also an active member of the Belt and Road project,
Yes.
but Chinese funding has gone down. Until 2019, they were investing some $100 billion every year. Now it's come down to 60 or to $70 billion. Yet you heap praise on the BRI, the Beijing summit. What do you think makes the BRI so attractive for Beijing?
No, it's a question of the availability of funds for development, which many countries have taken, but they have a problem of satisfying their infrastructure needs. Remember that no one else gives that money. Especially for the African countries, this is the only hope they have. And they have a longer way to go than any of us. So they depend on it. But let's say even in Sri Lanka, we have Japanese aid and Chinese aid. Now when a government comes in, we'll negotiate with both. We know Chinese aid comes first, so you can get one project up and away before the elections. The Japanese aids come later. They plan it out much better. So we just start that off before elections. So when you come to the election cycles, you need both. China to show that you've done something, and Japan to show there's more to follow. And hopefully, if the voters follow it, you get elected. Otherwise, you're not. But this is a political formula that many countries use.
You're looking at the glass half full. There's something else that follows after the aid comes.
Both
And
will
after
be. Japanese will be there before the fourth year, but they'll take a little bit longer than China. And it's different types of projects also. And now the Japanese, they are very thorough. They plan every detail.
China has also hinted at expanding the China-Myanmar economic corridor to include Sri Lanka. Is that something that you're keen on?
Well, yes, China-Myanmar economic corridor to Sri Lanka, and from Sri Lanka to Africa.
You want to join it?
Pardon?
Does Sri Lanka want to join it?
Well, the corridor is there, we'll get connected. There is no special program on that. But connectivity, yes, we are for connectivity. Also, we are for connectivity with the ports in Africa. So we will connect both the ports in Africa and the Myanmar ports. But what's the issue of Myanmar port?
Nothing. China wants to include you in one more project. I wanted to know if you welcome that.
It's not China. We are looking at getting integrated, and we feel that the African ports are going to be important. Even India knows that. We want to get linked up, and and if you link it up with the Myanmar, but the ships that come from Myanmar, that's a new route altogether. That was anyway going to happen.
Yeah. And ships have been coming to Sri Lanka as well. Two ships came from China in the last 1 year to Sri Lanka.
But why are you asking me?
No. My question is that those two ships came and the US and India expressed concern, and experts said that they were spy ships. Is that a characterization you agree with?
First one we asked for evidence, it's a spy ship. There was no evidence. Second one we had allowed it. We allowed the ship to come, and they were in this area. It was not an issue at all. What is a spy ship is a big question mark. These are civilian ships, but if there are issues, if they are spy ships, we will not allow them to come in. But as far as exploration is concerned, we allow not only Chinese ships, but other ships. But no one highlights the fact that other ships also come to Sri Lanka. Each time a Chinese ship comes, we get a lot of publicity. But if a research ship comes from another country, we are ignored.
For example?
They come in. There's a French ship due.
So
we are going to now develop our own hydrography unit and get our own ships. Then we can do surveys around India and China both.
That sounds like a good plan. But in the meantime, would you welcome more such research ships from China, or would you want Beijing to stop sending them?
We will welcome any research ship. We have no problems at all, as long as it's for research.
Would you allow China to also dock a military ship in Sri Lanka?
We have always allowed. All ships, military ships from any country, they are all dock in Colombo.
So you're okay with that?
Well, they have all been doing. Indians, Chinese, Russians, Americans, everyone comes to Colombo. Hambantota, we find the Japanese are not going there. No Chinese ship has gone so far.
Do you feel that Sri Lanka is caught in the great power battle between India and China?
There's a great power battle between not only India and China, between China and US though. India and all is a part of that. India is worried about its own security, and we have said if there anything that affects India's national security, we feel so, we will certainly act.
But let's talk about India's role in Sri Lanka's economic crisis.
India helped us certainly with the money they gave us. No two questions about it. Especially Mrs. Sitaraman was very, very helpful to us. Prime Minister was open, and Mr. Jaishankar was also focused on it.
You've been in leadership roles since the 1990s, and the India-Sri Lanka relationship has had its tough moments and good times. Do you think that the relationship is better now than it was some decades ago?
From 1977, I've been in politics.
Right.
I first dealt with the government of Morarji Desai and Mr. Vajpayee. We got on very well. I had got to know Mr. Vajpayee in 1974, before he became a guest of the Indian government for some time. We got on. Then under Mrs. Gandhi, it was more strained. But I must say Rajiv resolved the issues, and from there onwards we had really good relationship with the country, especially with Mr. Narasingha Rao. He and I were contemporaries in the education ministry, so I knew him well. And even after when he retired, I used to speak to him and get his advice on politics. Then we had Mr. Gujral, who again we knew, and Mr. Vajpayee and Manmohan Singh.
And what sort of equation do you share with the current Prime Minister of India, Mr. Modi?
I have known him for a long time, when he was originally a chief minister. I know Mr. Modi from that time onwards. Once I went to Gujarat when he was chief minister as the leader of the opposition, and I was able to be there. So I've known him well, like the other prime ministers.
Right. You met him in July this year. What was the conversation like?
Basically, Indo-Sri Lanka relations and how we go ahead after the crisis. So we had this vision statement, which I think is a step forward. So I'm surprised everyone is asking about the Chinese ship, instead of asking when are we going to develop Trincomalee together, or what are the connectivity in power, connectivity, the land connectivity, the shipping connectivity. None of those is questioned. It's only one.
I was going to come to that, so you might as well.
Only one Chinese ship which comes for 2 weeks.
Maybe it is an important subject, but yes, about the connectivity, what were the big takeaways from that meeting in it?
No, we decided to go into close economic relations, Indian investments in Sri Lanka, further trade liberalization. But more than that, I mean, it basically means Indians will come into Sri Lanka, they can invest here, tourists will come in here. Indians investing here in the South Port, West Terminal. We are looking at a fair amount of investments on renewable energy and the development of the Trinco port. We'd like to develop it. Then tourism. So we've had a fair, I think the plate is full if you look at the statement.
Right. You attended the inauguration ceremony of Mohammad Muizzu, the new president of the Maldives.
Yes.
And on the very same day, he asked India to withdraw troops from his country. What do you make of his India Out campaign?
No, the Indian troops leaving Maldives was a part of the manifesto of the present president. So, as usual, I presume when he made his first speech, he said he was going to fulfill his, I was listening to it, fulfill his requirement of promise to get foreign troops out of Maldives. I was not surprised that he said that, but that had been one of the main items on his campaign. I have not discussed that with him. This is my assessment of it.
Do you think this is the right policy decision?
Well, for them it is something on which he got elected. I didn't get elected on that.
No, I understand, but
So-
you're a veteran of strategic choices. You've seen South Asian politics.
Yeah, but they made the choice. But looking at the other way, I think India should not get too worried about it. I would say that you should focus more on strengthening our relationships with Maldives. That is the only view I have. India should not, because of this incident, abandon Maldives. I think Maldives needs their help, and that's what I understood from the discussions I had with the President, that he needs the help of India.
He said that to you, that he needs the help of India?
He said he needs the help of India.
But you did not advise him on this India Out policy?
No, I mean, he announced it before I met him.
What would you have told him otherwise?
I would have told him, do it slowly. He might still do it slowly. I mean, the fact that he is not going to get it, and do it after discussion.
Let's talk about the Easter bombings. There's been a lot of talk about it, and even some allegations of collusion by former government officials. You were asked about it recently, and you looked visibly agitated. Do you think there is an attempt to undermine Sri Lanka's investigation and findings into these attacks? And if yes, then by whom?
No, I have given the church the commission report and the commission report and all the other papers. I think it goes into about 20 or 30,000 pages. So when they study that, I said to come back, we will have a discussion.
You know, they've written a letter to Australia. They've called on Australia to build pressure on your government.
Who has written?
The head of the Catholic Church.
Pardon?
The head of the Catholic Church in Sri Lanka.
I don't think Australians are going to do it. Whoever wrote it, who the head of the Catholic Church? I don't know.
I don't have the name, but I can quote from what they've said.
Okay.
Yeah, they said, we want the Australian government and also many governments in the world to consider this as a serious human rights violation, violation of the dignity of human beings, and serious suspicions of a political plot appearing.
As far as I am concerned, I have given them the commission report and the evidence, and let them study that and come back. Then we can discuss it further.
The opposition
But,
yes, please.
At that time, I was Prime Minister, and the foreign intelligence services said that it was a local.
I remember talking to you right after that as well.
Yeah, that's so. But let them look at this and then come back. I don't think Australia or anyone will get involved till they look at it. If Australian government wants or anyone else wants, I will give them 30,000 or 40,000 pages of the commission.
The opposition says that you made an earlier pledge to let Scotland Yard investigate the 2019 attacks, and you've gone back on it.
I got them down. I said I am used to, but let them all first look at this report. Everyone is making politics out of it. Study the report and then tell us.
11 Indians also died in those attacks. Have you kept New Delhi updated about the investigation?
New Delhi knew because your people were here for the investigation and they filed the report there. After all, New Delhi informed us, so they know well what happened.
You also spoke about the situation in Gaza recently, and you accused Western leaders or Western countries of double standards when it comes to human rights. Why did you say that?
Well, look at it. I mean, they lecture to us. One of the conditions put on us that we should speak with the Muslims. So I am speaking with the Muslims. They are not speaking with the Muslims. But let's look at it. There has to be a ceasefire in Gaza. There are no two questions. So how can we ignore it? That is my issue. I mean, not only me. Everyone thinks that double standard. Actually, the division between the south and the north, or I must say south and the west, global, it's grown because of this. I mean, you can't justify this. 15, 16,000 people. And forget about us. There are demonstrations in Israel because they think they should focus first on hostages.
They say that the Hamas uses civilian infrastructure and civilians as human shields, and that's the only way to take them out, and that is Israel's justification for the civilian casualties. How do you think Israel should have
And then
gone
what
about
did they tell us at the end of the war? What did they tell us when they ended the war in 2009?
What did they tell you?
I mean, basically, we were condemned, no? I think finally. I was not the government, President Rajapakas. But all they talk of human rights thereafter also, have they followed it here? I mean, basically, the world is seeing double standards.
I have to agree with that. I have to agree with that.
Yeah.
Tamil reconciliation is a major challenge for any Sri Lankan government, especially the question of Tamil autonomy. You did make an offer, but you did not give police powers, and the Tamil parties rejected it. Did you not think that such an offer would be dead on arrival?
My offer has been accepted by most Tamils and most Tamil MPs. Tamil parties are divided. I started working out the return of the lands which have now been taken over by the Department of Forests and the Department of Wildlife. So we've said whatever, we will all go by the 1985 map. Now negotiations are on between the MPs, Forest Department, the district administrators. So this is one of the major issues that have come up. We have no problem. We've just started on this and I'm discussing with the MPs. After this budget is over, the next round will come.
In September this year, India criticized Sri Lanka's record on the Tamils, and it told the UN Human Rights Council, and I'm quoting, progress has been inadequate. Do you agree?
I don't agree with it. I'm surprised they said that. We have seen the progress we have made in the last year. And the Tamil MPs and the Tamils are one of it. We are for the first time gone in now. There are shortcomings. They still haven't reached the same level as others. In the cities they are all right, but in the rural areas, and that's the whole integration policy. You must all groups must have the same facilities in that area. So if you are in a distant rural area, everyone has the same facilities, but none of the communities could expect to have the facilities that's available in the district administrative center. We have to raise it later. And we'll be giving lands to the Tamils. In fact, today the renewable energy is in the north. So the north in the next 10 years will be a very rich province. So I was surprised of India and these things. But,
India is heading for an election next year.
Yeah.
Who do you think stands a better chance?
I must ask that from you.
No, I'm sure you've been reading what's the
I'm
situation.
reading, I'm
in
following
India.
it. Let's see what the provincial, the state elections say.
But the national election is what I'm talking about.
Yeah, state elections will give a... BJP has advantage in it's a single party that's led by a single leader. Opposition has still not got together. If they do have arrangements, then you have to judge it separately from what it is today.
What suits Colombo better? Continuity or change?
Sri Lanka has to deal with what happens in India.
I always say you should have been a diplomat, but you're a politician. Let's talk about your political future, sir. There is a presidential election next year in your country as well. Are you going to contest?
My first job is to put the economy into shape.
Is that a yes or a no?
That means my first job is to put the economy in shape, get it functioning. Thereafter I can decide what I want to do.
If you contest...
I might even become a correspondent like you going around. Will you take me onto platform one?
You're most welcome, sir. We can learn a thing or two from you, I'm sure. But if you do contest, would you consider taking support or aligning with the Rajapakas or their party or whatever section of the party that is supporting you?
Pardon?
Would you take support from the Rajapakas or align with them if you continue?
Well, at the moment, though I belong to the UNP, I am functioning as a president without taking party alignment. Then the question is whether I should come as a party alignment if I do take a question. Since I haven't decided, what does it matter?
It doesn't. Let's talk about cricket. We've just concluded a World Cup. The Sri Lankan team did not have a very good showing, but did you watch some of the matches?
I watched some of the matches. Not fully, but no.
More than the game, it's the politics that is bothersome. There's a lot that has happened. The sports minister of Sri Lanka dismissed the board, the courts reinstated it, then the ICC suspended it, then one opposition leader has written a letter to Parliament saying that the board has said that told the ICC that there is political interference and so on and so forth. So my question is, what really is happening in Sri Lankan politics?
The opposition has said that the Board of Control has written to the ICC and said to suspend Sri Lanka. On that one, the leader of the opposition gave me the set of letters. I haven't looked at it yet, but ICC was anyway going to suspend Sri Lanka. I knew that. We were trying to save the under-19 matches. We were going to have tourism, but that didn't work out, so we've lost on all that. I am waiting to see the outcome of the decision of the courts in regard to the interim committee. And once that is done, we'll have to start talking with the ICC to restore to ensure that Sri Lanka can host matches again. As far as the cricket board is concerned, there's a committee of ministers that are going to it and which will recommend legislation. They've spoken to the board members as well as to the interim committee members, but I want to bring legislation which will take away the power of the minister to intervene and interfere in politics. That's been there from 73. That has to change, and there's a new law, draft law that's been prepared.
Is Jay Shah running Sri Lankan cricket?
No, Jay Shah doesn't run Sri Lankan cricket.
So why is he being dragged into it?
They think that Jay Shah is supporting the cricket board. But I spoke to Jay Shah. I felt sorry that his name had been dragged in. I apologized. And he said, my position, if If there's a, whoever is the legal body, I will back. If this lot is the legal body, I will back them. If the other lot is the legal body, I will back them. If there's a third group that's the legal body, I back them. That's not decided by me. That's decided by ICC.
President Wickremesinghe, you're a man of books, and when your house came under attack last year, some of those books were also burnt, and you said that they were your biggest wealth. In these times of social media and hyper-polarization and hyper-connectivity, how do you view politics in times like these? Are these some of the trends that worry you, or do you think that you have to move with the times?
Some of it worries me. The media, the social media, the attacks on people, most of it that's not true. The ability to rouse crowds, whether it's on religion or cricket or anything. I mean, we have to seriously rethink of it. But also, now it's becoming the politics of the 21st century, of the younger generation. It's quite different.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure, as always, to talk to you, and for your patience and taking all the questions that we had.
Well, thank you for interviewing me.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.